This is how you smoothly sexualize a text conversation and turn a girl who won't even give you her number into coming straight over your place. I'm breaking down all the screenshots from start to finish so you can copy exactly what works. All right, now let's get into the screenshots and make sure you guys keep watching because there's gonna be a nice little plot twist. So it's Tinder opened her with "Hey trouble," and yes, that opener still works in 2026. She says, "You speak Russian? I studied Russian in St. Petersburg. It was a while ago, so I've forgotten a lot of what I've learned." So I say, "Yes, I was born in Belarus. They say practice makes perfect." She says, "Truth, I barely met anyone who speaks Russian here, so I'm definitely out of practice." Now the mistake a lot of guys would make here is they would just keep talking about linguistics, right? They would just keep going on like, "Oh yeah, cool, Russia's cool," right? But I don't want to do that. I want to make this conversation flirty, right? So I say, "It's okay. I'll be sure to definitely whisper a few choice Russian phrases in your ear," right? She says, "You're forward, but I like that. So this is essentially girl talk for keep going, please." I say, "Good, you are submissive, I'm guessing." Now here's a fun little fact. The vast majority of women are submissive. So you can just, no matter what, the context of the conversation is, if you're kind of starting to sexualize, you can just say you're submissive and you're gonna be right about 99% of the time. She says, "Haha, you guessed correctly." How did I do that? I say, "Perfect, I can order you around in Russian, make learning fun." So now I'm starting to kind of build, I'm starting to create a sexual vibe. She says, "Won't complain about that." So here's a text that I find works really, really well as long as the conversation is nice and flirty. I say, "What is your biggest turn on fantasy?" And don't send this out of the blue because then you're gonna get a totally different reaction. So she says, "That's actually a tough one. I'm into a guy who can take charge, pick me up, pull my hair, and be vocal about what he wants, but I also really love having sex outside. I also like nice lips on a guy. That's kind of my thing. You guys let me know in the chat what you think about my lips." But anyway, so I can't really show the text I sent because YouTube is not that cool with sexting type of things. It starts off with, "Perfect, perhaps toss you on the bed," and you guys can imagine from there. But it's just a sex, right? And then I say, "Outdoors is hot too." And she says, "Well, fuck, that was descriptive, haha," right? And here's another mistake a lot of guys would make here, right? They would just keep sexting, right? Because they see they're getting a positive reaction from the girl, so they just keep going and going and going. But eventually it gets boring, or the girl might, masturbate, and then she just basically lost her motivation to hang out, right? So you want to sext a little bit until the girl's bought in and you establish that frame, and then you want to move away from sexting and just get into a more flirty type of vibe that you had before. I say, "You enjoyed it though." She says, "You could say that." I said, "I bet we'd have a lot of fun together." So this is a feeler text, and I'm a huge fan of these, right? You're not actually going for the close yet. You're feeling out the vibe to see how receptive she would be, to actually meeting up. And I'll sometimes use these very early on in interaction. Like I'll say, "Hey, how's it going?" She'll be, "Good, how are you?" I'll say, "Good, just finished a big workout, looking nice and fit for a date," right? That's another example of a feeler text. And I get a positive response, which is, "I agree." And here actually I send a pretty poor text. I'm not sure why I send this, but I guess I just couldn't think of anything else. I say, "Someone's up past their bedtime." What I should have just said is like, "Cool, do you like wine?" But anyway, so she says, "Yep, and true to form, my body clock still woke me up at 8 a.m. like a total asshole." I say, "A few screaming orgasms should cure that." She said, "Today I had to sell for brunch. What a pity." She has a good sense of humor. You got to give her that, right? So here I start moving things towards the meetup. And again, a lot of guys, they get carried away with the sexting, carried away with the flirting, right? And the girl eventually just winds up meeting someone else. So you have to always be moving things forward. I say, "We should change this." She says, "Sure. When and where should we meet up? I'm free around 8 most weekdays," right? So I say, "Tuesday evening would work unless you're feeling spontaneous tonight." So here I'm trying to go for the same night close, right? I don't really recommend doing this unless you have a good amount of investment from the girl. She says, "Tuesday works for me. I just worked out and feel dead right now, haha." So here's the plot twist. I say, "Sounds good. Shoot me your number." And here's what she says. She says, "Can we talk on here until we meet in person? I'd like to wait to give out my number." So let's get things straight. This girl is sexting with me. She's down to come over for sex, but she won't give me her number. And she's not the first chick I've encountered like that. Now, if she had not been investing a lot so far and she just didn't want to give me her number, I would probably just unmatch and not even bother. But sometimes you get these where the girl's actually interested in meeting up, but she's just really paranoid about her number. I guess she doesn't know that you can just block people. I say, "That's cool. Do you have Snapchat?" Not something I would ever say now, but at the time I was experimenting with it. So here we exchange IGs. I say, "Add, I guess things are getting serious." She's like, "Haha, well, my IG's usually anything but." So here I kind of build on what I said earlier. Good, I like a girl who has this with a sense of humor, who enjoys getting ordered around in Russian. Now here's a caveat, right? I always say wait 48 to 72 hours before double texting, but this is the exception because we have plans for the next day, so I need to confirm that. So I say, "Hey, still good for tonight?" and she can't make it. She says, I had to work overtime, blah, blah, blah. And she's saying, I'm down for tomorrow or Thursday if you can swing that. So sorry, I'm busy at work. And sometimes guys make the mistake here of being a little too combative and being like, oh yeah, why can't you make it type of vibe, right? But if the girl is actually offering you actionable dates, so she's saying, hey, I can't do tonight, but I can do blah, 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 right? Then that's a very positive text, and you should just agree if you can actually do those dates. And that's what I do. I say, no worries, next time though, I might have to spank you a little. And this is a really great text you guys can steal for whenever girl reschedules. She says, I'm free 8:30 tomorrow and Thursday. Do you want to meet for drinks somewhere? I live on the east side. Ooh, she's trying to get me to meet her in public. That's not gonna fly. So I say, tomorrow evening works. I live on the east side too. Let's spill a bottle of wine on my super romantic patio. I think the funny thing is I didn't even have a patio at the time, right? My place was just like kind of like there's no patio, but it doesn't matter. As long as, you know, when you meet up with a girl in person, you're not weird, right? You're not making her uncomfortable. It really makes no difference. I've never been called out on this back when I used to live there. She says, sounds like a plan. I like reds this time of year, but I'm not picky. So here we're just talking about wine. Then the day of the date, I confirm with Yo Sexy. She says, hey, just got work, still down to meet up? I say, yep. I give her my address. And here's literally just logistics. So you can hear we're going back and forth about, you know, where she needs to go. She's parking, blah, 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 right? And then she comes over, and I think we're hooking up within 20, 25 minutes. It was like really quick. And then I gave her my numbers. So, you know, I had to have sex with her in order to get her number, but it worked. She says, hey, it's the girl you literally just had sex with at 10:28 p.m. on November 15, 2017. And we started at 10:27 p.m. So that was about a minute later. And it's a really interesting kind of text to send. But again, she has a good sense of humor. And so here we're going back and forth. I'm like, last night was fun. She's like, I agree, down to meet up again for sure. Right? And this is kind of what you want. You want a girl who's going to be DTF, who's going to come straight to your place, who's attractive, but who's also going to be down to meet you again. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know in the comments what you think the most important takeaway from this example is. Also, if you want to learn how to do this yourself, how to get the kind of bio, the photos, the texting that's required to get girls to come straight to your place, check out my free Tinder guide. Links in the description. And with that, you get put on my email newsletter where I send a lot of stuff that I just can't post on YouTube. A lot of never before seen things. Definitely massive value there. So check that out as well.